why does nature choose to flow? I think that was the way you
Yes.
first uh, uh, movement. That's the second law. The second law is was recognized without much opposition. It's about the fact that everything must flow from high to low, from where it is plenty to where it is lacking. You see, that could be water up on the mountain, um, heat in a place that's hot versus another place that's cold.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to publish my third episode with J.A. Jones Distinguished Professor, Dr. Adrian Bejan. In this episode, we further explore constructal law, its applications to communist versus democratic systems, and what is the meaning of time. I hope you enjoy the conversation.
Constructal law. For a finite flow system to persist in time to live, in parentheses, its configuration must evolve in such a way that provides easier access to the currents that flow through it. And while we've already went over this definition before in our first episode, I am curious as to know, like, what is the difference between a flow and a flow system configuration? Like these slight distinctions between each other, like what are they exactly?
Well, I apologize for the flow system. The word system is okay, jargon from thermodynamics. This is system is an entity that's defined unambiguously, uh,
Mhm.
meaning defined by the speaker, so that all the listeners are on the same page. And it is the system, this entity is uh, an amount of matter or a region in space. You can think of it as, um, for example, an animal or an engine. Each of those things has a recognizable um, a set of features, such as size and all sorts of properties, jargon, energy, and pressure, volume, all these things from thermodynamics. But now that we're discussing design in nature, which is also known as constructal law, this entity, the so-called system, also has configuration, which literally means drawings coming together into something that is a little bit more complicated, but not too complicated. Um, and so configuration or design, uh, and of course, you down here you talk about space and time. This configuration would be which belongs to the system. So system is jargon for everything that is put on the table to be discussed. Um, this thing has a past, a present, and a future because it keeps morphing, you see. Uh, the In thermodynamics, going back to the founding fathers, quote unquote, exactly or almost 200 years ago, there was the concept of the dead system, which really means equilibrium state, where nothing moves,
Mhm.
nothing changes. And so I got in the business of defining the live state, which is the one I just spelled out. It is the system in its proper recognition has features that suggest change and movement and morphing, which means deformation, uh, and staying power, persistence. They're persisting in time. That's the reality of any system in nature, which means around you and inside of you.
Okay. So then what's the difference between flow and design?
Oh, design means drawing. They teach you French and where you come from. Dessin came from disegno, Italian during the Renaissance. It comes from Latin signum, signum, which means sign, just like the traffic sign here. It means a drawing, an image with a message. It's not about scratching something on paper from a not one first grader, but even that is a message from that particular author.
Hmm.
The point is that the contrast of a black on white, which is the drawing, uh, the disegno, uh, happens because the maker of that nature itself, in fact, is sending a message. And when nature makes the drawing, she invites Adrian to get the message. And that is basically the constructal law. I got the message. Yeah, there are all these drawings that nobody questioned. Absolutely nobody, meaning in a predictive sense.
Hmm.
Uh, we just came to the head of the snake, that is basically that was the, let's call it, fiber of gold in the mine that had to be identified.
Okay. So forgive me for this question, but you said that the drawing is for the receiver to understand. Did I understand that right?
The drawing that happens is conveying a message. If it
Hmm.
doesn't convey a message, the message could be a question or a exclamation of wonderment.
Hmm.
Ooh, how beautiful, how inspiring, how lovely, how ugly, you see what I mean? How frightening. Anyway, all of that is comes from the receiver, but a phenomenon, that's the other word for the perceived message, or observation for that matter, uh,
Hmm.
is about the meaning of that image, and the meaning is the message, and it takes roots in the mind of the observer. Um, we were not, you and I, nobody is talking about stuff that's meaningless.
Right.
I mean, we just came up with a great idea. Listen, you have no idea what you're looking at. It's important. That's why you're looking at it. You know,
Okay.
uh, and a lot of it, most of it, every single piece of it leaves a lot to the imagination. It's an invitation for you to contribute what's been missing. Um,
So I'm gonna try and make a connection, and you tell me if this is on the mark or not. What you described about how design is supposed to kind of inform what's going on, is this not a somewhat definition of information theory, or at least Shannon information, where information is just the reduction of uncertainty?
yeah, okay. First of all, you just produced a download of jargon, okay?
Yes.
The Where I come from, I don't remember anybody who was interested in Shannon and these things that you mentioned. I Yes, I know the meaning of the word information. Information, informare in Latin means it's a verb, which means to give to a system, to an entity, to give form. And I already covered the subject that the form of this particular system is conveying a message, such as usefulness, or light versus heavy, and good versus bad, sweet versus sour. I don't care. The point is that we would not be even looking at these things if they did not have form, and,
Hmm.
um, and they would not be conveying a message that justifies our interest in them. So information is by itself, first of all, is jargon. But if information is a bunch of data, in a table, or some report that the company sells to you, uh, I can light a fire with that, okay?
Hmm.
Information is, I wrote in The Physics of Life, Information is not knowledge. Information is closest anyway, information is nothing without the attitude of doing something with that.
Right.
So the better English for what really matters is know-how. Know-how. And the coming to the earlier part, we're talking about a whole nation on the move, is that it is full of individuals with know-how, or full of entrepreneurs and parents who unwittingly are mentors to the young, so that the young gets off their butts and do something. So that's the know-how. In where I was raised, where private property was illegal, the result of that was that all the kids were being taught to follow orders and not display the so-called revolutionary attitude of taking initiative. So my generation, when I was growing up, was being taught not to work intellectually, not to create. Think about that.
That's what they were teaching you in Soviet Romania?
In communist Romania, yeah. In communism, Czechoslovakia, the same thing. Uh, and to the point that to work was shameful.
Yeah, right, because isn't there the classic saying, it's like they pretended to pay us and we pretended to work?
Correct, correct, correct. That's also yeah, it's a bitter joke
Hmm.
rooted in reality. Yes. Uh, and then you can imagine the shock I experienced when I came to America to see all these people who were completely at ease with yeah, doing menial jobs on campus. I immediately enrolled in doing four jobs on campus at the same time, you know, so that I could feed myself. Uh, but that kind of decision making would have been first of all impossible, not
Hmm.
available under communism. It would not cross anybody's mind to work when in fact the regime was built on the idea that the government gives everybody a small bowl of beans every day. Uh,
Yeah, I'd actually like to just kind of dive into that because I remember in some of the books I read, such as The Gulag Archipelago or The IR Cold War by Lorenz Luty, they spoke about how in the Russian Politburo there was a huge emphasis on whatever they do has to serve the revolution, so the October Revolution of 1917. And
yeah,
you're saying this is very contrary, where the sense they were not trying to promote any type of internal revolution against the state, because in the communism the people were supposed to serve the state and the state serves them back in some way. So, like, what were they kind of teaching in that sense then? Because now, like, this is kind of like a black box that I don't
they're,
understand.
they're teaching everybody to be a follower, not a generator of personal initiative.
Hmm.
Everybody was being raised to be a sheep.
Right.
And what you quote from the Politburo of the USSR is exactly that. I mean, they're talking about decades after the so-called October Revolution, which was a coup d'état. Okay, and the mission of the totalitarian state is to stay in power, uh, never be challenged. That's
Hmm.
that's the project. You look at communist China today. Never mind the skyscrapers. The project of that regime is not to be replaced, and that is what's the word? That's the they give themselves their own death sentence with that kind of project, because clearly, any flow system on Earth, such as a huge people in motion, uh, has the natural urge to move freely.
Yeah, well, must evolve in such a way that provides easier access to the currents that flow through it. So
Right.
people in this system are currents.
Yes, people in the car, yeah, and also their stuff and their family and their well, in the case of China, they do have private enterprise, all dependents. They have relatives abroad now because for the past 40 years they've been traveling. They got passports. They didn't have passports before Deng Xiaoping. I mean,
Wow, okay.
everybody was locked in. Uh,
Hmm.
Mainland China was surrounded itself with barbed wire and watchtowers. I was in Hong Kong in 1991 or 92, I forgot, and they took me to the frontier between Hong Kong and the Guangdong province, and I saw what was familiar to me growing up in Romania. You could not you could not escape from mainland China. The barbed wire was not for the Hong Kongese uh, not to go into the mainland. It was for the mainlanders not to escape. This is a continent-sized prison that they built. It's same with the USSR.
Yeah, the
The
Berlin Wall, Hungary, Austria.
No, no, but no, they could not escape from, say, Moldavian SSR to Romania. They could
Hmm.
move internally in the so-called. I'm talking about the regular citizens. There are no passports. There's
Really?
that is the point. The government, yeah, the government had everybody. Oh, by the way, every citizen, you get a ticket if they catch you driving without a license. Okay, here in America. Under communism, and if they caught you without your internal ID card,
Hmm.
big trouble. Because you see, they needed to have everybody under surveillance, in time and in space. Uh, But
Yeah.
but that was for the territory of the unlucky country. Uh, but to leave, to cross the frontier, no, absolutely not even a concept. Passports. It's kind of a joke, by the way. So sorry, it's ironic. Um, yeah, in the communist camp, which was basically the Russian Empire renamed, uh, passports did not exist. But who invented passports? Tsarist Russia. Before before Tsarist Russia, uh, folks all over. Look at the history of okay, even the luminaries from where your ancestors came from. If they had the money to hire a horse-driven carriage, to take them from one place to another, they went to Paris, and studied. There was no checkpoint at the frontier.
That's true.
None.
Borders were much more fluid back then.
Yes, and from which the expression "have money will travel." Uh,
That
and
makes
anyway,
sense.
the Tsar invented passports, and then came Lenin and Stalin and all their uh, highly or lowly uneducated brethren who made it impossible for their own people to leave. They would have run away. Yeah.
I guess that's kind of what happened when Gorbachev came in, right? Because he was an educated person. I forget where he studied, but I know it was a top
He
university.
started hydrology or water management.
But do you
You
know where?
Yes, I used to know. I think at uh, I forgot the top technical university in Moscow. I think it was called don't is named after a Bolshevik revolutionary. Uh, I can it will come to mind. But that was, by the way, he was a classmate of Yasser Arafat, the famous.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all those people were communists. Or
That's
Iliescu,
true.
or Iliescu in Romania, the first post-revolution president.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. But that's
So,
true. There was some
yeah,
unholy
so
alliances during that
so
time.
So Gorbachev, yeah, educated, somewhat enlightened to see as an engineer that his own regime was doomed. The one I told you more than once impressed me was Dubček, who saw much earlier that communism, as it was imposed by the Soviets, was unsustainable
Hmm.
and had to be opened up to the rest of Europe.
That's right.
And uh,
Um,
and they killed him actually. They killed him slowly, but these people are just uh, merciless. The totalitarians,
yeah, and the
merciless.
same thing happened to Hungary in 1956. They had a 1 day of freedom, technically, and then it was shot down.
Yeah, and they killed they killed at the very top. Imre Nagy. He was a communist. The Dubček was a communist, but these were human beings compared with their assassins.
That's true. That's true. And since we're on the topic of this regime, how can constructal theory explain how the USSR fell?
It's about flow. It's about movement. The Soviets, in fact, there was no opposition to the crumbling of the USSR. If you really look at what happened in the USSR, Yeltsin took over, and you didn't see people invading the public square, you know, crying for communism to be preserved. Not a single one.
Hmm.
Uh, Everybody was fed up with the nonsense. They were starving, really. They did not have clothes on themselves. They were basically, as I said, bolted to the ground. Their best scientists did not have access to ideas from the West because their academies could not didn't have money to buy journals, and I I lived through that period because I was in the business of Xeroxing papers and mailing them to all sorts of people behind the Iron Curtain. They had nothing that you take for granted. And
Okay.
if they had a relative abroad who had the money to place a phone call into the so-called communist paradise, there were people listening to the telephone call and interrupting the connection if the discussion became dangerous to the regime.
I mean, I know the Soviets, at least the Russians, had this envelope ungluer and regluer to also check private mail because at a certain
Oh,
point,
sure. Yeah, yeah.
at a certain point,
Yeah,
private mail was illegal. That's actually how Alexander Solzhenitsyn got arrested. So,
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. By the way, did you see the East German, sorry, German, but from a movie called The Lives of Others?
no, I didn't.
Make a note, watch it. It's about that, but it was how it was happening in East Germany. Now, East Germany was a lot more humane than Romania during communism.
That's true.
But this Lives of Others is about how everything was about the Stasi eavesdropping on the citizen. Uh, it's scary. If you watch that movie, scary. It begins with torturing a person through sleep deprivation. That's what happened to my mother when she disappeared. She was tortured the same way. When I watched that movie, I I remembered my mother talking about what happened to her.
Wow.
For I think it was 6 days in a row,
Awake.
she was prevented from sleeping because it's called Securitate in Romania, and the secret police
Hmm.
wanted to extract secrets from her. Fortunately, she knew nothing. So when she became delirious, she could not say anything that was of value to these animals. But you see it in the movie The Lives of Others, which was a highly decorated movie, got all sorts of awards. The victim in the movie actually knew something, and he ends up incriminating himself and others when he
Hmm.
spills these secrets. It's really, really disgusting what they're doing. Uh,
I mean, it was so disgusting. One guy could write a Bible's worth of suffering, right?
and these are the same people as where you come from. I come from. The same people. I mean, same people. You can call it all you want, Central Europe or whatever crap. No, and they did it. By this time, East Germany had its own communist hierarchy,
Hmm.
which was in place, benefiting from the regime compared with the average East German worker or peasant. Uh, I mean, there are private people driving cars in East Germany, and those people are high up in the hierarchy. Uh,
Okay, this is actually a something that we could kind of discuss since we're on this topic of communism. How could it have been more attractive than what was going on before then? So like from like a constructal view, how does communism offer something that might facilitate mobility for people back in the early 1900s, even if the idea came from the 1800s?
well, the problem with meaning the answer it's impossible. Communism from the get-go was a design, the design consisting of closing down the channels. Okay,
True.
because Marx had come up with this theory that private property had to be abolished,
Abolished. Yeah.
and that meant that the designer, called the entrepreneur, uh, or the person with the idea, was not allowed, not allowed. It was the state. The concept of collectivism comes from there, that
Hmm.
meaning a brutal misunderstanding of the concept of economies of scale, the idea that everything comes from the big group, and by the way, it's so stupid now that I hear myself speaking these words. And so the answer to what you bring up is impossible. No, everybody knew, actually, the people who were educated properly in economics and the history of civilization knew that what was being imposed by the Soviet Union was inferior, even worse than feudalism, inferior, because it denied the power of the individual to create. Simply denied that. The individual was well, that is the individual under communism is the enemy of the group called the class. There are two classes. It was the proletariat and the factory owners,
The
and
bourgeoisie.
well, okay, bourgeoisie actually is not a bad word. It means city folk. But yes, the ones who had money in the bank and other, they had money to buy tickets to travel and to build their own houses and all of this, and they were eliminated. They were actually killed or chased away, but I think killing was a lot cheaper. And Oh, that's look at the history of everybody who escaped from Bolshevism in the first 2 or 3 years after Bolshevism, and they ran for their lives, and they ran to to ports, harbors like Odessa and other places. Constanza in Romania was another exit point, people escaping on boat to Istanbul and then beyond to Western Europe. Um, uh, I, the story goes that all of Polish intelligentsia and national treasure and the government escaped in 1939 through Romania, um, on Romanian trains.
Hmm.
And they ended up in Britain. Poland fought with the Allies against the Germans coming from Britain. Uh, the Polish army.
Right.
And that amounted to no good because Poland was gobbled up by the USSR. Uh, I mean, these are highly advanced societies,
Yes.
Uh, not as advanced as Czechoslovakia, by the way, at that time, but definitely European, unlike uh, the inferior culture that was imposed, which was that of the mighty Soviet citizen.
So one other pro argument for Marxism is that it was a way to flatten hierarchies and to abolish the aristocracy. In a system where there is aristocracy, which has existed, like the Tsarist regime in Russia was very aristocratic, how like how does the constructed law prefer one or the other or abolish
Well, the
both?
constructive law is about everything, including Marxism and communism, because as soon as a communist regime was imposed on a previously democratic country, that includes the constitutional monarchies, peaceful for centuries under that kind of setup. As soon as communism was imposed and the existing hierarchy was eliminated, overnight a new hierarchy took place. A communist hierarchy, one in which the winning class, meaning the winner of the class struggle, the proletariat, had no say. They were once again at the very bottom, equally unimportant in the very bottom.
Hmm.
And hierarchy is a natural, universal phenomenon in nature. It is the only way to set a group in motion.
Right. I mean, you wrote that in your book as well, where what the constructed law predicts is that hierarchy should emerge naturally as a result of the tendency of moving things to generate designs that facilitate flow access. The
Right,
constructed law also predicts that the rigid hierarchy will give way in time to a freely morphing hierarchy. This is why dictatorships are relatively short-lived, and democracies have staying power.
right. And also why dictatorships uh, shortly after they're imposed, they become hierarchies, or if you want, there's another word for it, mafias
Mm,
in their own right, yes, mafias, but the mafia has a hierarchy, has a structure. It has a boss, and then henchmen, and all sorts of informers, and all these things. But those things arrive naturally because that is the way to run the business in this so-called dark network. But
right.
it may be dark to the outsider, meaning the outsider does not see the structure of the mafia because it is secret. But that structure is the hierarchy that's handed down by nature itself.
That's a good segue. So, why does flow give rise to hierarchy? Why do river basins naturally connect to larger bodies of water, or in this case, governments have very small sub-agencies that connect to the larger governments, at least the one in the United States and other democracies do? And why would nature create these hierarchical structures that have some type of optimized configuration, as opposed to having everything flow in a straight line?
Yeah, well, that's as opposed to flows in a straight line, is because flow on an area is not from point to point. It is between one point and the area, which is an infinity number of points, or
Mm-hmm.
the other way from the infinity to one. And it's not just the area, but the volume as well, such as the thorax. Air flows to one point, which is the nose, and then it flows back in from the one point to the volume through the same architecture. So uh, one design um, uh, is for all these flows. It's not identically the same design, except for the human lung, obviously, but the river basin looks like the river delta, and all these things that you see everywhere. We're talking about the dendritic, the arborescent. There are many other configurations that are not tree-like, such as the rhythm of nature. Nature is has a design in time as well. Uh, but coming back to
Hmm.
why why not in a straight line? It is simply the geometry of movement on an area, which is between one point and the whole area. And you cannot connect one point with all the points on the area with straight lines. You simply cannot, because yes, if you do that, then you rule the area out of existence. You'll make paths or links or highways all over the area. But the area exists because that infinity of points represents the inhabitants or the whatever is crawling in the soil. That's totally on the way. I'm talking about small movers, slow movers, many movers, worms, whatever, rotting in the ground. All of that needs water that the river brings,
Mhm.
and the river brings it with you use the word optimized. Well, there's that means chosen, optimized, chosen. They I hesitate these days. I used to speak optimized all the time about 30 years ago. I don't do that anymore because it's not about the deity making the choices or selecting the way that Darwin was speaking. That's okay for him 200 years ago. No, no, sure. Those people are using the words that are available.
Yeah.
I don't blame them. Um, Today, I think it's time to call spades, which is that reality, the baggage of what happens by itself, is has these features or tendencies. I call it directionality to access. Access means the opposite of obstacle. Access also means opportunity to get from point to area in this case. Um, and uh, and then what results is the way that reality speaks to you, and the reality speaks to you with drawings, with images, configurations, and movies. You know the way that these things change.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so then why does nature choose to not to optimize flow, but why does nature choose flow? Like, and as we mentioned this earlier in the conversation, but is this flow process, is this a fundamental property of space and time, at least on Earth?
You're speaking jargon, space and time. Take one at a time, but I will prefer not to even bring it up because we have not defined time. I know about space, call it size. Um, the I forgot the beginning of repeat your question.
Why does nature choose to optimize flow? I know you say you don't like the word optimize, but that's the vocabulary I have.
In nature, no. You asked me about why does nature choose to flow? I think that was the way you
Yes.
first uh, movement. That's the second law. The second law is was recognized without much opposition. It's about the fact that everything must flow from high to low, from where it is plenty to where it is lacking. You see, that could be water up on the mountain, um, heat in a place that's hot versus another place that's cold. Um, uh, Mass transfer, or yes, sweetness from uh, sugar-rich region here to
Hmm.
a neighboring region where there's no sugar. All of that, if given time, the sweetness equilibrates. So that's flow. The one-way movement of anything, electricity, the same thing. The one-way movement of something is second law. That is flow. But the fact that the flow impresses us, but also its immediate environment, say animals and other things with configuration, is another natural tendency, which is the constructal law. In thermodynamics, before constructal law, there was no drawing, and even less principle to proclaim the arrival of drawings in nature.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
I said in the classical thermodynamics, meaning in thermodynamics, before the constructal law, there were no drawings,
Mm-hmm.
and no principle or law to proclaim or to require these systems to acquire or exhibit configuration.
Okay. Okay.
So the constructal law is, I wouldn't call it the third law. It's about I think it belongs in thermodynamics, which is really the disciplines that covers everything. You brought up biology. I mean, all the animals obey the very, very few laws of thermodynamics. One, two, in this case, constructal law. That's about all that I can say about it. It's not, and I don't use words in a cavalier fashion. I think the meaning of the words really matters.
Okay.
Even time, you mentioned space-time. Time is not what you read on your the dial of your watch. Time is the observation. I have this book called Time and Beauty. Time is the observation of change.
Time is the observation of change.
Yeah, and this is as old as the Homo sapiens. The reality or the confidence in the observer, the confidence that what he saw today is different than what he saw yesterday, and then from which the conviction that what he sees today will look different tomorrow, and from this words such as now, before, and the future. These are words, many words describing this phenomenon of observing the same thing. The fact that there's a difference between new and old. Get it? And then when the highly civilized, relatively speaking, civilized people showed up, such as the Greeks, they used a single word for everything that I told you, called chronos. Chronos for time. Time.
Chronology.
Yeah, chronos, time. It meant this phenomenon of the fact that new is different than old, and now is different than before. And but every individual has this observation that new is different than before. In other words, time physically is a personal observation. And I mean, I read Einstein pivoted his belief in relativity to the fact that there are all these individuals observing and not being really, from his point of view, expected to agree on every single observation, from which, in this case, the observation that time has passed. That's a personal thing. But in a highly advanced society, that had already the telescope and other highly advanced instruments, came and also travel over time zones, okay, came the technology of informing the whole globe to standardize this observation of change. the perceived change. And so the so-called clock time is a convention at Greenwich and these places. This is recent stuff. The watchmaking is quite interesting. Has a history that comes from Czechoslovakia and Prussia. Um, the But this is recent. So
Hmm.
the clock is a way of giving every individual a repair, a point of reference to compare, say, Adrian's perception of the time of day with yours. That's why I asked you about your meridian. Uh,
Hmm.
but I'm not stupid to believe that time to you is the same as time to me, from which the impression that time flies, which happens in older people, um, the impression that time stops and happens in people of your age who fall in love and lose their minds, Um, see how different this time thing is. It's,
Hmm.
it's individual. It's individual. I may have told you last time we spoke. There are these people who demonstrated how true what I just said, how true it is. They spend weeks in caves, in darkness, to prevent themselves from seeing sunlight, and then they came out reporting to the world what day it is. Yeah, and
You didn't speak about this last time.
I think it's in the book Time and Beauty, and they were off by a whole week, off because living alone in darkness, they had no idea when it was time to go to bed, but they had to sleep, you see.
Yes.
And yeah, every person uh, stayed up working, I guess, with the candlelight or flashlight, uh, much longer hours every day, while every time they would sleep at night in the cave, they would cross one day in the calendar. And all these experiments agreed in one sense, which was that the the person came out of the cage had had spent a lot more time being awake during one of his days, and that's why the day that was on the notebooks of those in the cave um, had happened outside the cave 1 week earlier.
Okay.
Meaning, yeah, meaning for them in the cave, time had stopped because they had the opportunity uh, to work and to think and all that. But they were alone. I don't even know why they were so interested in not sleeping. You see, uh,
I don't know. I guess you have to try it out for yourself.
probably they were really happy with their own ideas. Uh, People write to me with these anecdotes, which are actually documented plenty once you're alerted to their existence, um, and and then I get a kick out of the fact that they make sense. That uh, meaning that these experiments from 100 years ago were heralding the truth that I shared with you, which is that time is a personal observation. The name has nothing to do with the observation. The observation is a difference between, meaning the observation of change. That is what time is.
I love that definition. It's succinct, it's not jargony, and it makes sense right off the bat.
Repeat. What?
I said I like that definition a lot because it makes sense, it's succinct, and it's not jargony, and it's something you understand right off the bat. Like there's no confusion about what do you mean.
It's for a man in the street, and that's a very good society to try to communicate with.
Okay.
Those people, I mean, the scientists, take them with a grain of salt. They're okay, educated, um, but that's it's like the butter on the slice of bread. It's just a like a coat of paint.
Hmm.
The common folk have wisdom galore.
I agree with that sentiment a lot, actually. Um, so constructive law is it's not a new theory. It's almost going to approach its 30th year of at least not discovery, but like in print, right? You published in 1996 about it, although you've been thinking about it beforehand. And I'm just wondering, how has it evolved since you first proposed it? And have there any been major shifts in your understanding? Are there unsolved questions? Floor is yours.
I yes, I that's a good point to bring. I evolved, because I question everything that I say, but also everything that I hear. Uh, I'm not a rock thrower. I'm not, breaking windows. I think science is a lot of it is here to stay, especially coming from the engineering point of view, clearly. Um, but science is to be questioned, and but also the people around the so-called scientists deserve attention. So yes, in the beginning, just like I was saying earlier, Sigmund Freud, ignorant, I was using words that were common in engineering, such as optimizing. I was using word design without questioning it. Um, and I was using not law but theory. I would say constructive theory, up and down. And then in 2003, this idea made the cover of the French popular science magazine called Science et Vie uh, in November, and that was a big thing in France. And I was invited. Uh, so I was invited by this magazine to be interviewed, and then there were several speeches I was invited to give, and at one of them was a professor of philosophy, a French woman, elderly, from the University of Amiens, north of Paris. Angèle Kremer Marietti, her name was. She passed away about 5 years ago, and she took me to school. Said, no, what you have here is not that. She told me the difference between law and theory. You have here a law, and a law is one, and the theories are many. There are as many domains, biology, hydrology, in which you invoke the law in order to predict what something should be. Yeah,
Repeat that.
I'll tell you. The law, or the so-called principle on the continent, they speak of le principe. Uh,
Hmm.
the 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 law is one. This is the constructed law, but and which is of course about a mental viewing. Hello. Um, if you know the law, you know how something should be. If you think of the law while you look at a cat or a river or something else that inspires you. But the law is one, and you have the statement, okay? But then, if you want to tell others to predict the future of something they have not thought of before, such as a snowflake or lightning or an airplane as a morphing flow system that it's a flying carpet for people. If you want to predict something like that by invoking the law, then your prediction is the theory of the airplane, or the theory of the snowflake, or the theory of the constructed theory of the evolution of shirts or something, or paintings, or you name, on and on and on, or traffic signs. And you get the idea. So
Yes.
the law is one, the theories, meaning constructed law is one, constructed theories are many. And that was a proverbial bingo, that first of all, I was educated by her, but I was also liberated. I figured out immediately that I had to get away from using old words that I was misusing, you see. So I was pushed into a room in which I was correcting myself. And I stopped, I stopped speaking nonsense. And I've been trying to do that kind of self-correcting ever since. Now, if you watch the videos of how I teach, because I teach a course about, I've been teaching this course for 30 years. Now I talk about the design in nature up and down, design in nature, which is the facts. And then I surprise the student with the answer to the question of, do you know how to predict what I just described to you? And here's now the lesson of how Adrian 30 years ago was beginning with predicting all sorts of things, Now, now I'm beginning with the answer to why is this important to me? Well, it is because of the so-called environment. That's design in nature. You
Okay.
want to hear about the environment? Yes, I'll give you environment, okay? But I can also predict it. You want to talk about sustainability? Sure, I'll give you sustainability, but I will also predict its future, you see.
Right. So this is how it's shifted, is it went
Yes,
from
yes, yeah. I made myself more honest, more a better speaker, a better artist, and I think a funnier professor, funnier. Humor helps. Uh, I uh, I feel liberated. I and and I laugh when I notice that during all this time, not a single person, and they certainly don't love me, not a single person has refuted the constructed law. Uh,
congratulations?
yeah, what I see is one remake after another. There are also, especially physicists and biologists, who begin to talk this way, as if uh, as if they came up with this kind of point of view. And
Right, but it's like a diluted version, right?
yeah, but the least they should do is cite me, but they don't. You see,
Yeah,
uh,
that's a different story.
that's a very common story. Very common story. Uh, anyway, and that's the reality. Listen, I have a student showing up in exactly 13 minutes, so I better start breathing to go to the bathroom, to the toilet. Um, I'm at your disposal, Robert. If you want to keep talking, I'll talk to you forever. By the way,
Okay,
by
sounds
the way,
good.
I just thought of something very useful to you. You should keep track of all these things that are emerging between us. You are among the many people who interviewed me, the one who came with critical questions. Critical questions. Yes, you look at all these things that I asked you to write. Okay, uh, you're in the best position to write a critical view on about our discussion, meaning what you learned or what readers of what you write will or learn. It should be about you, your view of design in nature or reality. For by the way, one that would be most useful for your career, but you're the one who is the most equipped to be critical as you write about this content. Uh, Adrian is biased, I've done it. I've written many review papers of my own domain. I don't do that anymore.
Okay.
But you have your career in front of you. You are equipped. Obviously, you have interviewed me. You can quote, but that's up to you how you do it. But the way that you put things on top of other things is yours, and the audience in Miami will benefit from a speaker and a writer who who presents the current state of this particular field of thinking.
Duly noted. Duly noted.
Yeah, but that story is yours, you know.
I know what you mean, and I appreciate that a lot, by the way.
And by the way, this is the way to be in life. When you become a professor, it's only about you.
And your ideas.
Hmm. Do not be a follower.
It's hard to do that. Uh,
It's okay to be individual. I mean, unique, critical. Obviously, not an insulting one, but a person who asks questions while going along or going against. You know.
Thank you for listening to this episode. To support this podcast, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, rate it 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I'll see you at the next interview.